My name is Emily Carter, a 29-year-old nurse from Chicago, and I never thought I'd end up in a courtroom defending my right to my father's love. But here I was, standing in Cook County's bustling courthouse, accused by my sister Laura of stealing our late father's $10 million estate. She claimed I coerced him into changing his will while he battled Alzheimer's. The truth? I was the only one who stayed by his side when he needed it most. Laura, the golden child who drained his bank account for years, hadn't shown up until there was money to claim. What happened in that courtroom changed everything. If you're reading this, I hope you'll stick with me. Share your thoughts below. Have you ever had to fight for what's rightfully yours? Let's go back to where this nightmare began. I learned what it meant to be invisible at 13. It was my birthday, and I'd spent the morning decorating our Lincoln Park townhouse with dollar store streamers and a lopsided cake I'd baked myself. My father, James Carter, a tech mogul who'd built a software empire, was locked in his office working. My older sister, Laura, was at a modeling audition, her latest attempt to become Chicago's next big influencer. My mother had passed away when I was 5, so it was just the three of us. Or more accurately, just me. By 7 p.m. I sat alone at the dining table staring at my untouched cake. Laura breezed in at 8, tossing her purse on the counter. "Oh, is it your birthday?" she said, barely glancing at me before checking her phone. Dad didn't emerge until midnight, apologizing vaguely about a deadline. I smiled and said it was fine. It wasn't. The only person who noticed me was Mrs. Delaney, our neighbor, who brought over a card and a small gift. A journal. "Write your story, Emily," she said. "You're more than they see." I didn't understand her then, but I kept that journal, scribbling my dreams of becoming a nurse, of helping people the way no one helped me feel seen. Laura was the star of our family. At 18 she was tall, glamorous, and always in the spotlight. Dad funded her every whim: designer clothes, trips to Paris, a failed music career. My achievements: straight A's, volunteering at the hospital, a scholarship to nursing school, went unnoticed. When I graduated high school, I invited Dad and Laura to the ceremony. Dad sent a text, *board meeting. Sorry, Laura didn't even respond. I moved out at 18, renting a tiny apartment near the University of Illinois. I worked night shifts at a diner to pay for nursing school, never asking Dad for a dime. But I visited him every Sunday, bringing coffee and his favorite bagels from Kaufman's. He'd smile, ask about my classes, and tell me stories about coding in the 90s. Those moments were my lifeline. When Dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's 5 years ago, everything changed. Laura, then 27, was living in a Gold Coast penthouse Dad paid for. She'd call him when she needed money for her brand or another failed business venture. I moved closer to his house in Evanston, cutting my hours at the hospital to care for him. I cooked his meals, managed his medications, and read him his favorite sci-fi novels when he couldn't sleep. Laura visited twice in 3 years, each time leaving after 20 minutes, complaining about the hospital smell. Dad died on a rainy April morning. I was holding his hand, reading Dune aloud, when he slipped away. Laura didn't come to the hospital. She texted me 2 days later. "Funeral details? I planned it alone." A week later, Dad's attorney, Margaret Chin, called me to her office in the Loop. I assumed it was a formality. Dad's estate, worth $10 million, would likely go to Laura or a charity. I sat across from Margaret, sipping bad coffee, when she slid a folder toward me. "Emily," she said, "your father left everything to you." I blinked. Everything. The entire estate, his investments, properties, savings. All of it. She read from the will. "To my daughter, Emily Carter, who showed me love when I needed it most, I leave my entire estate. She is the only one who never asked for anything but gave everything." Sis. My hands shook. At the bottom of the page, in Dad's shaky handwriting, was a note. Laura took. Emily gave. This is my choice. Laura didn't call until the next day. She showed up at my apartment, her heels clicking on the hardwood. "This is a mistake," she said, tossing her hair. "Dad wasn't himself. You manipulated him." "I was there every day," I said quietly. "Where were you?" She laughed, cold and sharp. "You think you're the hero? You're a nurse, Emily. You were doing your job. He was my father, not a job. Her eyes narrowed. This isn't over. That money belongs to the family. She stormed out and I knew what was coming. 2 weeks later, a process server handed me a summons at the hospital. Laura was suing me, claiming I'd coerced Dad into changing his will while he was mentally incompetent. The complaint was brutal. 30 pages accusing me of isolating him, manipulating his emotions, and exploiting his Alzheimer's. She demanded the will be voided, giving her the estate under intestate succession laws. I sat in my car reading the document, my chest tight. The media had already picked up the story. A Chicago Tribune headline screamed, "Nurse accused of stealing father's fortune." The comments called me a predator, a leech. Strangers who'd never met me decided I was guilty. I hired Rachel Kim, a sharp probate attorney I'd met during a hospital case. We met in her cluttered office, surrounded by legal books and coffee cups. "This is baseless," Rachel said, scanning the complaint. "But Laura's playing dirty. She's leaked this to the press to ruin you before we even get to court." "What do I do?" I asked. "We fight," Rachel said. "Not just for the money, for your name." We spent weeks preparing. Rachel dug up Dad's medical records, showing he'd been lucid when he revised the will 2 years ago. A neurologist's report confirmed he had early-stage Alzheimer's but was fully capable of making decisions. Then Rachel found something else. An audio recording Dad had made with Margaret Chin explaining his will. I hadn't known it existed. "Do you want to hear it?" Rachel asked. I hesitated, my throat tight. "Yes." She played the file. Dad's voice, frail but clear, filled the room. Asterisk, "I'm James Carter. I'm recording this to make my wishes clear. Emily's been my rock. She's here every day, not for money but for me. Laura only calls when she wants something. I want Emily to have everything. She deserves it." "Sis," I cried, pressing my hands to my face. Rachel squeezed my shoulder. "This is our ace. We'll save it for the courtroom." The morning of the trial, I stood outside the Cook County Courthouse, cameras flashing. Reporters shouted, "Emily, did you manipulate your father?" I kept my head high, Rachel at my side. "Don't engage," she whispered. "Let the evidence talk." The courtroom was packed. Reporters, hospital colleagues, even neighbors who'd known Dad. Laura sat at the plaintiff's table, her attorney Victor Lang, a slick corporate lawyer with a Rolex that screamed money. Laura wore a tailored white suit, her face a mask of wounded innocence. She didn't look at me. Judge Evelyn Torres, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, entered. I'd heard she was fair but tough. "Let's begin," she said, her voice cutting through the murmurs. Victor stood, his tone smooth. "Your Honor, my client Laura Carter has suffered a grave injustice. Her father, James Carter, was a vulnerable man with Alzheimer's. Emily Carter isolated him, manipulated his emotions, and coerced him into signing a will that disinherited his eldest daughter." Rachel gripped my arm, keeping me calm. Victor held up a letter claiming it was from Dad. Asterisk, I feel pressured. Emily's always here, controlling everything. Asterisk, my stomach twisted. The handwriting looked like Dad's, but the words felt wrong. Judge Torres studied the letter. "Is this authenticated?" "We're working on it," Victor said. "But it shows Mr. Carter's state of mind." Laura took the stand, tears in her eyes. "Emily turned Dad against me," she said. "She told him I didn't care. I loved him, but she made sure I couldn't see him." The gallery whispered. I felt their eyes judging me. Rachel stood. "Your Honor, that letter is a forgery. We have a handwriting expert ready to testify." Victor frowned. "That's a bold claim." "It's fact," Rachel shot back. She held up phone records. "These show Laura contacted her father 12 times in 3 years, all asking for money. Emily visited him 156 times in the same period." Judge Torres raised an eyebrow. "I'll review these." I stood, my voice steady. "Your Honor, I didn't isolate Dad. I cared for him because I loved him. Laura only showed up when there was something to gain." Laura's face flushed. "You're lying," she shouted. "Miss Carter," Judge Torres snapped. Control yourself. The first day ended with the courtroom buzzing. That night my phone rang. It was Laura. "Drop this, Emily," she said. "Split the money, or I'll make sure everyone knows what a fraud you are." "You already tried that," I said. "It's not working." "You'll regret this," she hissed. I hung up, my hands shaking. The next morning Rachel was ready. "Your Honor," she said, "we have an audio recording made by James Carter, confirming his intentions." The courtroom went silent. Victor objected, claiming it could be manipulated, but Rachel had already submitted forensic analysis proving its authenticity. Judge Torres nodded. "Play it." Dad's voice filled the room, weary but resolute. Emily's been my rock. Laura only calls when she wants something. I want Emily to have everything. Sith. The gallery gasped. Laura's face went white. Victor scrambled, producing text messages where I'd told Dad not to send Laura money. "This shows manipulation," he said. Rachel was ready. She displayed the full texts. One read, "Dad. Laura asked for $100,000 for her boutique. I'm tired of it. My reply. You don't have to give her anything. It's your money. Dad. You're right. I wish I'd listened to you sooner. Emily wasn't manipulating, Rachel said. She was protecting her father from financial exploitation. Judge Torres leaned forward, comparing Victor's edited texts to the originals. "Mr. Lang," she said, her voice icy, "did you knowingly submit altered evidence?" Victor stammered. "We received those from." "That's not what I asked." Laura stood, her voice shrill. "She's lying. She's always been jealous of me. She's nothing. A nobody who tricked Dad into thinking she cared." The courtroom froze. "Miss Carter," Judge Torres said, "sit down or I'll hold you in contempt." Laura kept going, tears streaming. "She doesn't deserve this. I'm his real daughter." The bailiff moved toward her. Laura's attorney pulled her down, whispering frantically. Judge Torres turned to Rachel. "Any further evidence?" "Yes, Your Honor," Rachel said. "We'd like to call Dr. Alan Rosenberg, Mr. Carter's neurologist." Dr. Rosenberg, a calm man in his 60s, testified that Dad was lucid when he revised his will. "He scored perfectly on cognitive tests," he said. "He told me he wanted to reward Emily for her care." Victor had no counter-evidence. The momentum had shifted. Judge Torres looked at Laura. "I've seen many probate cases," she said. "This one is clear. James Carter was of sound mind. His audio recording, medical records, and Emily's consistent care prove his intentions." He turned to me. "Miss Carter, you earned your father's trust honestly." She picked up her gavel. "The will stands. The plaintiff's challenge is dismissed. Ms. Laura Carter will pay Emily's legal fees of $30,000 for a frivolous lawsuit." The courtroom erupted. Colleagues hugged me. Reporters scrambled for quotes. Laura sat stunned as Victor packed his briefcase. She didn't look at me. Outside, Laura stood by the elevator alone. I paused. "Laura," I said. She turned, her makeup streaked. "What?" "I'm sorry it came to this," I said. "I just wanted to honor Dad's wishes." "You stole everything," she spat. "No," I said. "Dad gave it to me. There's a difference." She laughed bitterly. "You've lost your family, Emily." "I never had one," I replied. "Not with you." I walked away, feeling lighter than I ever had. The media frenzy followed. Headlines shifted. Nurse defends father's legacy against greedy sister. The Chicago Tribune ran a feature quoting Dr. Rosenberg and Mrs. Delaney, who called me the daughter James deserved. Comments online praised my resilience. One read, "Emily's story gives me hope to stand up to my own toxic family." I changed my number and tightened security at my apartment. Laura didn't contact me again. I heard through a mutual friend she'd lost her influencer deals. Her brand couldn't survive the public backlash. 3 months later, I met with Rachel and a financial advisor. "I want to start a community health clinic," I said. "For low-income families. Call it the James Carter Clinic." Rachel smiled. "Your dad would love that." I endowed the clinic with $3 million, ensuring free healthcare for thousands. I kept enough to buy a small house in Evanston, with a garden where I could plant flowers like Dad used to. The rest went into a trust for future projects. One evening, sitting on my porch, I opened the journal Mrs. Delaney gave me years ago. I wrote, *, Dad saw me. That's enough. * for the first time I believed it. This fight wasn't just about money. It was about proving I was more than the forgotten sister. Laura tried to erase me, but Dad's love, his real legacy, gave me the strength to stand tall. If you're fighting to be seen, to be valued, know this. You don't owe anyone your peace. Set boundaries. Stand up for yourself. You're worth it. What would you have done in my shoes? Share below. And if this story resonates, let's keep the conversation going.